Hey everyone, welcome back to the RetroBreak Podcast. This is episode 47 and I've got a bunch of random things to talk about this week. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the expos that I've been to over the past few weeks and talk a bit about game shopping because I actually went to find a really cool game shop in Stoke yesterday and something very exciting happened there that I'm planning on doing a video on soon. And also talk a little bit about some channel experiments that I've been running as well over the past month. So let's get started with the conventions. So there's been two main conventions. There was MCM in London, which is always a great show, but it's also extremely busy and extremely stressful at times. And then there was the other show, which was AnimeCon, which was a much smaller convention that was on at Birmingham last week, or the weekend before now, I think. And I really enjoy that one because it's so much quieter. You can actually, have a bit of time to breathe and go around and talk to other people as well. But the thing I really enjoyed, I actually got to meet a few people that I've known online for a long time, so I was very excited to meet them in person. One of them was Matt from the YouTube channel Boyographic, and I've been a big fan of his channel for a long time, so it was great to finally meet him in person. And we had a good long chat at the after party, although the music was like drowning us out half the time. But it was really great to talk to him, and we had a bit of a walk around after. And he actually mentioned that he's starting a manga podcast and gave me a few recommendations as well. So I've been meaning to start reading more manga for a long time now. In fact, I've got a big stack of manga books on my bedside table. I've got Orange, which is a time travel romance story, and another one that he recommended that I actually picked up yesterday from Forbidden Planet, which is called Akane Banashi, which I don't really know much about yet. It's something about doing a Japanese style of play where you sort of mimic things and then the story's told through the play in the story that the characters are actually doing. So that sounds kind of interesting. I'll try and read that at some point in the future. And anyway, the other reason that I really enjoyed AnimeCon was because my friend Kwang went there, along with a few other people. There was Marta, who I briefly met at MCM, but I actually got finally a chance to properly introduce myself to her at this show. And another friend of his called Jade, who's a music composer for games and anime, I believe. And they did a panel all about how games and anime sort of influence each other and how they've influenced their own decisions in their careers so far. So that was great to listen to. And I also got to meet Pete there, Nostalgia Nerd. So that was really cool. And the panel was great. Hopefully he'll upload a recording of it at some point online. But that was really fun. And just the show itself was really great. And I picked up some amazing artwork as well. Someone came to the table who was a big Toho fan. And I'd been going for a walk around. And just as I got back to the table, Sarah said, "Nick, you just came here in time. There's a Toho fan that was trying to talk to me and I don't know anything about the series. So you two chat." So we had a good chat about Toho. And then I went round the desk because she wanted to show me something. And then she was like, "Come with me, I got something to show you." And we went to another artist and they actually did Toho fan art. So that was really cool. And I picked up a few pictures from them. And when I actually got back that weekend, and you might have seen on Twitch, I actually played some of the Toho games because I am trying to collect them. And last time I was in Japan, I picked up about 4 or 5 games from the series. So I played through them on stream at the end of last week. So that was really fun. And it was great to play those games again. They are some of my favourite games of all time, and it's been a long time since I sat down and properly played through some of the Toho games. And Imperishable Night is by far the best one, in my opinion. That is just absolute pinnacle of gaming, honestly. The soundtrack's incredible. The gameplay is just perfection. So if you've never played it before, Toho 8 Imperishable Night. Absolutely 10 out of 10 game. And there was something else really cool at AnimeCon as well, and that also kind of ties into the games that I've been playing. So unfortunately, I missed most of it. This was something that was on at the after party. There was actually a Vocaloid concert, and I'm a massive fan of Vocaloids and Project Diva and basically all the fan characters and stuff as well, and all the different songs. I even bought a bunch of physical Vocaloid albums while I was in Japan last time. But anyway, they were doing a stage show and they actually had the proper projector screen, and I just managed to catch the last few seconds of the concert, and I walked in the room and I was so excited seeing everyone with their glow sticks and all the music blaring and stuff and the big projector screen at the back of the room. And I just got there and they said, "Thank you for coming, we'll see you all again next year," basically. So I was very upset about that. But the next day, I did go to their stall, VocaFest UK, They actually had a store at the show, and I bought a nice Gumi standee. So Gumi's my favourite Vocaloid, for those of you that don't know. She's kind of got a more rock kind of aesthetic, and she did actually have her own game on the PSP as well. She's not one of the Sega characters, but I just really like the sound that Gumi produces. So yeah, I was really happy to see some Gumi merch there. And I got talking to the people who work at that store, and they said that they're doing shows all across the UK, so hopefully I can try and go to one of those in the future. But to tie that back to games for this podcast, when I got back home as well, the other game that I played that night was Project Diva. So I have the not the PlayStation version. I played it on the PSP when I got back, and then I realised I actually owned it on Steam, and that is the version that contains like all the songs from all of the original Project Diva games. And I was always really put off because playing it on the PC, obviously I use an Xbox controller, and the A, B and the X and Y buttons don't really work in my brain because I'm so accustomed to playing that game on PlayStation. So I thought I'll try and plug the PS5, PS4 controller in, whatever, and see how I get on with that. And I was really surprised that you can actually change the symbols to go back to the PlayStation ones. So now I can play Project Diva on the PC absolutely perfectly, and I was really enjoying going back and playing that. I am used to the older games which don't have the multiple buttons at once holding down mechanic, which takes a little bit of getting used to. But outside of that, the game's amazing, and that's kind of clicked to my brain now as well. So I've been enjoying replaying Project Diva on Steam now that I can actually play it properly, so I was very happy to play that as well. And it was great to meet some Vocaloid fans here in the UK too. So let me know in the comments whether you like Vocaloid, whether you like anime, whether you like manga. It's not really something I touch on too much in this podcast or on the channel, but if you're interested, maybe I can bring it up a little bit more in the future. And I have been watching a lot of anime recently as well, so we just finished watching Dungeon Meshi, which I'm sure a lot of people have been watching. It's a very popular show at the minute, and it's just wrapped up on Netflix. And it was, I thought it was a pretty mediocre ending. I know some people probably liked it, but the show on the whole is really fun. And the other show we've been watching is Free Ren, and I've been really enjoying that. It's just got such a unique atmosphere to it, and I love the characters in general, but I love how they sort of make everything feel real. Like all of the magic has like real world implications and ways of using it and stuff, and the journey is really sort of vast as well, and I like the way it sort of weaves the present day story with the original story of Free Ren's past and stuff, and how they all mix together, and she's kind of following the same path in the future with a different set of people and kind of learning life skills along the way. It's so good, and we're nearly at the end of that show as well, so I'll be very sad when that finishes. But then after that, we're planning to go back and watch Steins Gate again, which we got about halfway through, and then we picked up some of the shows. So I'm looking forward to the big twist that comes halfway through that season and seeing how Sarah reacts to that. So that'll be really fun. And like I said, I've got some manga to read as well. But yeah, any recommendations, let me know down in the comments below. And let's move on to the game shop next. This was a shop that I went to yesterday called Game On in Stoke, and I drove there with my friend Jack, who's been on the channel a few times actually, and you might hear his voice in the background on some of this footage that maybe I'll be uploading tomorrow. If you're listening to this, the date comes out on Tuesday. I might upload the shop tour if I get around to editing it tomorrow. And I only picked up 2 games from the shop, but they were very exciting. One of them was Shining Force 3 for the Sega Saturn, which is a very rare Saturn game. And the other one is Daytona USA Championship Edition, also for the Sega Saturn. And the reason that I picked up 2 Sega Saturn games was that when we got there, I was looking around the shop, I was like, yeah, the shop looks pretty cool. And then I moved to the next shelf, like, oh wow, that's a pretty good Sega Saturn collection, I might pick some up. And then the guy overheard me saying that, and he said, if you think this is a good collection, have a look in the boxes down here, which aren't out on the shelf yet. And there was literally like 4 stacks of plastic boxes. And I said, like, wow, this is probably the best Saturn collection that I've ever seen in one place. You've literally got like every game I could think of for the system. And he said, no, literally, there is every single game for the system here. So the day before, someone had actually traded in their entire Sega Saturn collection because the guy was moving to Japan apparently, and he needed to get rid of his Sega collection. And apparently a few weeks before that, he'd actually traded in an entire Dreamcast collection too, which is just insane. There wasn't many good Dreamcast games left by the time I got there, but I'll show off what there was in the video. But yeah, seeing that Sega Saturn collection and just being able to hold and touch and look at the back of every single UK released game for the Sega Saturn was just incredible. It's quite possibly the best shopping experience that I've ever had. I was just blown away with the selection, and the quality of the games as well is just absolutely incredible. And I'm so happy to actually own Shining Force 3. That is a game that a lot of people have recommended to me for a long time, and I'm very interested to see why so many people, hold it in such high regard. I've even had people reaching out to me on Twitter and on YouTube to say that it's the best game they've ever played. So no pressure there when I get around to playing it. But yeah, very, very much looking forward to playing that. I'm a big fan of Camelot from the Golden Sun games that came out a few years after that. So very interested to see what they did before as well, because I've never really got into the Shining Force series. And when I went game shopping a few weeks ago as well, to another local game shop, that one was one in Wolverhampton, I think, I actually picked up the original Shining Force for the Mega Drive too. So in terms of the RTS, so in terms of the tactical games, not RTS games, I've only actually got one more to get, and that's Shining Force 2 on the Mega Drive, and then I'll have the full series. And I still need Shining in the Darkness on the Saturn as well, which is a 3D dungeon crawler, which also looks really cool. And I've got Shining Wisdom, but I've never really played that one much. So let me know whether you think I should play that, or whether I should just start with Shining Force 3, or whether you think I need to play the other two first, because I don't really know much about the series at all, to be honest. But yeah, very, very excited to get both of them. And I also picked up a magazine from there as well. So I presume when this guy traded in his Dreamcast collection, he also traded in all of his magazines. And again, these were in pristine condition. Like, this collector must have been storing things very, very carefully, or just got them from when they were brand new, or upgraded the copies at some point. Everything was just immaculate. And I picked up one of the issues of the Dreamcast magazine. I'm holding it right now. DC UK Dreamcast magazine. The issue where they announced Skies of Arcadia, and I picked that one up because I really liked the image on the front cover. And Skies of Arcadia is a great game, but there's so many other interesting games for the Dreamcast that I was reading about in this magazine. It kind of made me think that I need to maybe look into the Dreamcast library a bit more to see what games I'm missing from my collection. There was a really big feature on there about Metropolis Street Racer as well, and Shenmue, which of course are two of the best games for the system. So really, really happy to get that, and I love collecting old retro magazines as well, so it was great fun to read through this and just see what people were thinking about the games back then as well. It's always really cool. And as well as that, we had a few hours to kill while we were in Stoke, so I went to CEX and I picked up a game from there for the GameCube that I've never even heard of before. This was called Hunter the Reckoning, and apparently this is based on a tabletop RPG series, like a zombie fighting top-down multiplayer game or something. So I was interested to get that just because I've never heard of it before. And to our surprise, when we were walking around, we actually found a physical game shop that's not part of Sports Direct or House of Fraser. And from there I picked up Devil May Cry 5 for the PS4, which is a game that I've wanted to play for a while. And their pre-owned games in there were actually 50% off, so I got the game for £7, which I'm sure is a pretty good deal. So yeah, looking forward to playing that too whenever I get around to it. And let's see what else I want to talk about in this podcast. I think, let's talk about the channel experiments. I haven't mentioned that yet. So I'd say they're actually kind of failed experiments, but basically for the month of June, the month that we're in now, if you're listening to this as it's live, or in the future, June 2024 is the month that I'm on about here. And basically what I was planning on doing is doing a room tour and actually splitting it up into 2 videos every week for the entire month. And I've done that so far, but maybe I'll take a break next week to cover the game shop, because I just really want to show this Saturn collection because it was just amazing. But I'm kind of surprised at the reaction to the room tour videos. So this was something that I'd heard before as well about YouTube in general, but the first part did really well, like exceeded expectations. It's still pulling in views and stuff, and I thought, wow, if that's what I can get on a Tuesday video, imagine how good the next one's going to be when it's released on Friday. And then I released the one on Friday, and that one got about half the views of the one that I released before. And I thought, maybe it'll pick up over time. It didn't really pick up at all. So when it came around to Tuesday and doing part 3, that one did even worse than part 2. And then when I uploaded part 4 last weekend, that one did even worse. So I think there is merit in what I've been reading about on YouTube, that uploading kind of back-to-back episodes of the same sort of topic and style don't do as well as the original. And apparently that just works for anything creative. Like, if you have a really good idea, the first time you do it is always going to be better in terms of the outcome, I guess, what people experience of it and how they react to it, compared to any subsequent version of the same thing. So it's a very interesting way of thinking, and it's kind of got me thinking, how can I do more unique videos on my channel, especially considering I'm pretty limited to just whatever's in this room and whatever I can record on the screen. So how do you turn that into something unique each episode? I don't know. It's something I have to try and figure out, but I do kind of see that doing more interesting one-off episodes rather than making series every time and running them until they're dry can be rewarding for the viewer and for the creator as well, because there's more creative freedom in that. But anyway, that's something that I'm going to have to figure out on my own at some point. And now let's move on to the next part of the podcast. My voice is going. I've actually started to feel a little bit under the weather since I came back yesterday, so I won't drag this one on too much longer, but I did want to touch upon some of the projects that I've been working on. So some of you will be very excited to hear that I'm finally done with the PC version of Super Donuts. So after the panel that I went to at AnimeCon and just hearing everyone talk about their experiences making games, it really got me excited about making a game again. But in order to do that, I really need to get Super Donuts out of the way, which is kind of making a game in some ways, I guess, although it's a game that I already made. I'm just trying to fix it more than anything. But it's so close to being complete. I can actually play the game from start to finish now on the PC using a controller, which is really exciting. I was never able to do that until last weekend, so that is really cool. And now it's all bug testing and fixes and tidying up some of the graphics that I'm not happy with. And then eventually it'll be released on itch.io, and I'll do a video on my main channel announcing all that and talking a bit about my game dev journey and stuff as well, because I know I've covered it in podcasts on the past, but I've never actually really touched on it in detail on my main channel, so that's something I'm excited to do. As well as that, I do have some new game ideas as well. I don't really want to talk about them too much here, but I have been writing some ideas, and I've also been writing some ideas for my game collecting app as well, and I was following some tutorials, but I kind of lost a bit of wind when it got a little bit complicated and went back to working on Super Donuts instead. But maybe that's the good thing about having multiple projects. If you get burnt out on one, you can always move over to a different one, which is always good. So it's good to have multiple things at once, I think, anyway, personally. So that's it for projects. I haven't really done anything with the book recently, although I do have a long train journey next weekend, so maybe I'll take my iPad mini and maybe come up with some more ideas for the book, maybe write an extra chapter or something. But yeah, that's kind of on the back burner for now, but obviously it's something I want to try and do a bit more of fairly soon. And to finish, let's talk about some content that I've been watching recently outside of the anime, because I've already touched on that. Definitely watch Free Rent if you haven't already. That's probably my favourite anime that I've seen in a long time. As well as that, I've been really enjoying music stuff on YouTube recently. So I think I brought it up before. There's a channel called Jesse's Auditorium where he gets introduced to video game music for the first time. And he's a music composer, and he basically breaks down what's good about the songs, what he thinks about them, hearing them for the first time, what makes them special, what makes that composer special and stuff, and how they're arranged. And it's just really cool to hear his take on game music. So I went back and watched a bunch of his Toho ones because they've got incredible soundtracks. And after speaking to that girl at AnimeCon, I was like, I really have a big longing for anything Toho related. So I went and watched a bunch of his videos. And there's another YouTuber, a music YouTuber called Charles Cornell, I think, or Corel. I've kind of wrote it here, but I wrote it really scribbly. So type in one of those two on YouTube and you'll find it. So he's a pianist, and he listens to game music, and he kind of breaks it down in terms of the scales and the chords and how they were composed and how it would sound on the piano and stuff, and what makes certain game soundtracks good and stuff. So I was watching one that he did the other day where he was talking about the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, and like Jesse, he'd never heard of it before. I mean, he'd heard of Chrono Trigger, but he hadn't heard of the music. So he was going through that for the first time and breaking down the compositions and saying how incredible they were and stuff. So that was really cool. And I've also been going back and watching a lot of Happy Console Gamer again recently. In fact, just before recording this, I watched his latest video, which was him actually talking with his hairdresser about some of his gaming memories, which was a very odd episode, but it was still fun to watch. And I think that's about it. I've also been watching some anime piano covers and gaming piano covers and stuff. And yeah, I've got too much on my plate now, but I would like to try and play the piano at some point, but I have to keep telling myself, no, I haven't got time to learn how to play the piano. Anyway, my throat is dying. I think I'm coming down with a cold, so I'm just amazed I managed to get this episode out on time. But thank you so much for listening. I really enjoy making these podcasts. It's a great way to unwind on a Sunday and just reflect on what's happened over the past few weeks. And it's probably great for me to remember what I've been doing as well if I listen to these in the future. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. stick around. I'm aiming to upload a new episode every 2 weeks going forward, so thank you so much for all the support, and hopefully you'll all listen to me again very soon. That's it for now. Goodbye.